Okay, hi everybody. So I have found this article a couple of weeks ago, it feels like. I think it came out like in the end of May, and like I found it on the day that it came out. I just haven't had the time to basically do this video. So I wanted to share it with you guys, and the title of it reads Rate of Latinos Killed by Police Skyrockets. Okay? So the rate of Hispanics killed by enforcement officers jumped nearly 45% in the last decade, according to newly released data reviewed by Axios. The big picture: it's been 3 years since George Floyd was murdered by Minneapolis police, resulting in a worldwide racial reckoning and protests against police brutality. But little data exists on how police violence affects Latinos. By the numbers, Latinos killed by law enforcement hit 0.26 per 100,000 residents in 2020, up from 0.18 in 2011, a study published this month in the Journal of Community Health found. The researchers examined mortality data from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention from 2011 to 2020. New Mexico, the state with the largest percentage of Hispanic residents in the U.S., had a rate of 1.02 per 100,000 residents, more than twice the rates of any other state. A surge of policing shootings in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2014 led to a federal consent decree for the city's police. Colorado had the second highest rate with 0.49. Zoom in, they found that Hispanics accounted for nearly 20% of all people killed by police between 2011 and 2020. If you hear that noise, that's my cat. He's actually like, his bowl is right behind where I'm sitting right now recording this. And that their rate of fatal encounters was 1.33 times higher than the rate for non-Hispanic whites. Latino men between the ages of 20 to 39 and those living in western U.S. states have seen the greatest spikes in deaths caused by police. More than 50,000 years of potential life among Hispanics were lost due to fatal police encounters across all ages, the study concluded. The researchers calculated this by subtracting the age of those killed from 80, the assumed life expectancy, and then adding those figures for all the people killed. During this decade, the Latino population grew by 18.3%, while the number killed by police grew by 61.4%. Jesus Christ. Background: researchers cautioned that the CDC mortality data had limitations and the rates may be even higher. I'm not surprised. But here we go. Here's the kicker. That's because police departments and other agencies don't keep standardized racial and ethnic data. Why? Because for such a very long time, law enforcement identifies Latinos as white regardless of what race we are, what race we look like. We're still identified as white by a lot of law enforcement. Okay, and I said this a long time ago, that a lot of Latinos are identified as white. Not that we're two completely different things. I am not referring to how we identify ourselves. I am referring to how law enforcement identifies the Latino population. Okay? Whether it's, when they're becoming incarcerated, or like in cases like this when, they're shooting up Latin people. Okay? Two very different things. This is not us identifying ourselves. This is us being identified by them, okay? And some law enforcement do this for different reasons. A lot of it is ignorance, and a lot of it is also for, I don't want to get into their numbers. But yes, it is for their numbers. But we do not receive the benefits of being labeled as white. I did videos on this years ago with Latin people within the prison population, okay? I cannot pronounce this person's name. Jagdish, I'm not even going to pronounce the last name, a professor of public health at New Mexico State University and co-author of the study, said researchers use population and police shooting trends to help develop the rates, a methodology reviewed by Axios. A Washington Post analysis examining police shootings since 2015 found that Black Americans were killed by police more than twice the rate as white Americans. Latinos are killed at a rate of 55% higher than whites, according to the Post. What they're saying, the perception is that police brutality is exclusive to African Americans, which is not true. But we already know that. I've already spoken about that forever, okay? And other people have too, but the thing is, because mainstream media doesn't make it a thing, and I think the reason why they don't make it a thing is also has to do with us being identified as white, and I think that that's one of the reasons why the mainstream media doesn't really talk about it, Okay. I'm going to just say Kumbaya because I cannot pronounce that. Kumbaya said the lack of public health research about Latinos and how Americans focus on black and white dichotomy when discussing race contributes to the lack of information about Latinos' police interactions. He said many police departments remain primarily white and male, fostering systemic racism. Between the lines, Latinos have always known police killed Hispanics disproportionately, but rarely had the consistent data to prove it. Max Markham, Vice President of Policy and Community Engagement at the Center for Police Equity, told Axios. In the majority of cases, law enforcement themselves are the ones who determine the racial identity of police who they interact with, and that isn't always accurate. In most cases, it's not accurate. Like I said, there's already been data that has been proven that they usually identify us as white, regardless of what our quote-unquote race is. And yes, I'm already highly aware that most of us are mixed, all right? Markham said more transparency and standardized data are needed to shape policy that would address police shootings. All right, so I think, yep, that's everything. So, and as you can see, this is a young man. I believe his name is Christopher Torres. He was shot and killed by Albuquerque police in 2011. Oh, look at how fair-skinned he looks, right? And how quote-unquote white he looks, okay? That is one of the reasons why I say that regardless of how fair-skinned we are, how light-skinned we are, and how people like to claim privilege all the time, that privilege is not necessarily the case. And I think that people always go back to what's being represented in mainstream media, okay, when it comes to Latin people. And what I would argue to say is that regardless of what's being portrayed in mainstream media with our image, that doesn't mean that necessarily equates to real life privilege. It doesn't. It's very arguable, okay? And then people will get into different data of different things and how these people get the jobs and these people don't get the jobs. But then when you look at it in this dynamic where people, and this is New Mexico, and I even found another article that talks about, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a video on it or not, or maybe I'll just put that other article in the description box of this video, and it talks about the rates of Latinos being killed in Colorado. These Latin people are like of Mexican descent. You're talking about more mestizo looking Latinos, more whiter looking Latinos. We're not talking about Afro Latinos that are getting shot up by the police like that. All right. And it's these areas where there's an abundance of Latin people getting killed by police. Okay. And, it's a shame that for the longest time, we never put this thing as a forefront. And, we're always kind of, as Latin people, I think most of us were very supportive when it came to the Black Lives Matter movement. To an extent, I was in the beginning until I found out, the stuff that what the women of the organization were doing. And, what they were doing with regards to the money and whatnot. And I became very, very infuriated with that, because that was, to me, using people's deaths in order to benefit your own self, to benefit your own life. And I found that really, 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 really insulting and sickening. And, I was highly upset because I'm someone who is... and I think I did a video on this, and for some reason I felt like I had backlash on it. I was always very supportive of, the BLM movement, but not this organization stuff is a completely different thing. That is a whole other animal. But the movement, of course, yes, of course I'm in support of that. And I think that a lot of Latin people, we were on board with that. And there was a lot of Latin people who, were kind of... jumping on that also, and on that bandwagon to an extent, and kind of, trying to shed light on, hey, a lot of Latinos are also being killed by the cops. And I think it still wasn't being heard. And I think that these stories, even to this day, are still not being heard. And I think that it's going to take Latinos to kind of, instead of constantly focusing on media representation and colorism and things like that, we need to recognize that within this country, they kind of put this thing where they want people to believe that we have a certain privilege, and this is to me done intentionally. It is intentionally done to keep us divided, and I think that there's a lot of Latin people who are buying into keeping us divided. They want that racial divide. They want to promote that divide, and it's a shame. Times are becoming so different, times are becoming so different. And I think that we, as mixed Latin people, really are falling into the okie doke of the black and white dichotomy. And it's just a shame. And I was hoping that it would be the opposite, but it doesn't seem like it's the opposite. Because when it comes to things like this, people don't want to focus on things like this. People want to focus on, and even to an extent, this was me several years ago when I was talking about race and Latinos. But one of the things that I was always trying to do is say, hey, we are not getting privilege. Hey, regardless of our color, we're still, being killed left and right, depending on what part of the country we're living in. We're still having these high rates of incarceration. What is everybody talking about? And I would try to put data out, but because the data is not quote unquote popular, people don't care unless things become popular. And it's people like me who will put things out. I'm called crazy. My ideas are called crazy, stupid, dumb. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You're racist. You're this, you're that, you're colorist. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then things are finally, it's like it takes more things to come out for people to finally see what I've been saying for such a long time. And it's, on the one hand, it's like, I get upset. I'm not going to lie. There's times that I get upset. And then on the other hand, I'm like, maybe people are finally waking up sometimes. And then sometimes I feel like there's people that are not waking up because they are falling into that that black and white dichotomy when it comes to Latin people and how we want to divide ourselves, especially when it comes to the topic of media representation. Everything goes back to media representation, and it is a goddamn shame because I guess to me, the only people that should really be caring about, and I've said this before, should be very, small children. Like, I get it. You want your image to be seen on TV for your children. And I totally get it. When you are an adult and you're looking to television to tell you what you are, that is a problem. If you're a full-blown adult, I don't know what to tell you, that you're looking at TV and expecting to see, fake characters that are created and, needing to see what your image is on TV. I mean, I will never understand that. I will never get it. I would totally never get it. When I was a small child, I cared about those things. Once I became teenage years and adult years, I didn't care about that anymore. And the fact that there's adults that care about that for themselves and not using children as the reasoning, that they want their children to see that. I understand with children. I don't understand it with adults. I totally don't understand. But this to me is extremely important, and we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about how Latinos are killed by the cops. We don't talk about how the rates of us incarcerated are so high. We don't talk about how, while Latinos are incarcerated, that many of them are labeled as white by law enforcement, not by themselves, because they do not dictate that. Law enforcement dictates that, not the people, okay? People really don't understand that. It's not Latinos identifying themselves when they become incarcerated. And then some of them that if they did have the opportunity, a lot of them don't even know any better. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't reflect on anything benefiting them. That white label does not benefit them. It never benefited us. Even back in the day when during my parents' time, when all they had was black and white boxes. From my parents' time, I'm talking about. We're talking about the 40s and shit. All right. From their time, that didn't benefit them. So regardless of whether they would put themselves in that white box or not, because it was either black or white and you had no other choices at that time. There was zero other choices. You were only one or the other, and that's it. Okay? It didn't benefit them. It didn't. The label does not benefit us. Even if we all came together as Latin people, and if we all said, hey, let's identify as white on the census. Sorry, you hear my cat. Let's all benefit. Let's all see if we can benefit by calling ourselves white on the census. I swear to God, he always wants to be in my videos one way or another. If you guys don't see him when I do record, when I show myself, he be in the background and he tries to get in videos. And if not, if he hears me talking for too long, he does that. Right now, I'm in the house completely by myself because my husband took the kids to the park just for me to do videos, okay? Or just to try to at least get one out. So I'm trying to get this one out. So even if we all came together, okay, we're all going to decide that we're white. We're going to put white on the census. That doesn't mean that it's going to equate to us getting white privilege. It doesn't. You want to know why? Because these people know when they see us, they can tell who we are. They can tell that we're not one of them. I've always said that. Even in this neighborhood that I live in, and I'm not going to say that it's most people, but I get it a lot. And it's from the women. And I was talking to my sister about this yesterday. The women out here, a lot of times, the older ones, oh my God, they know what we are. And my husband never gets grilled ever. They really don't grill him like that. But me, they grill the crap out of me out here. And it's these older ladies, older than me, older. I'm somewhat older, but they're older than me. You're talking about 60 something year old, 50 something, 60. And I'm holy shit, and they're grilling the shit out of me. They know that I'm not one of them. Regardless if our quote-unquote skin tone is similar, there's features on my face. My hair is super tight curly. Okay? There's things about me that to them, they can tell that I am not one of them. So again, all that us labeling ourselves white, it could benefit their numbers, but that doesn't mean that that's going to equate in us benefiting from anything else. Especially when there's guys that look like this guy, who looks like, I swear to God, I have an uncle who passed away. That's what he looked like when he was young. Just like that. He looked just like that. Except my uncle had kind of a little bit more of a fro. But he looked just like that. My dad even looked somewhat similar to that when my dad was young. All right? They know. Look at his parents. Look at the way his parents look. And people can say, as you could say that they look white or whatever, but the determining factor really are the people that are putting the guns to their heads and blowing their brains out. Okay? So anyhow, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I just wanted to share this because, like I said, I found this a while ago. Yeah, look, May 30th. I wish I would have saw it in the beginning. But yeah, May 30th. And I did find it on May 30th. And it's just alarming that it feels like it's going to take the deaths of a lot of us for us to come together and be hey, we have a real issue on our hands, a serious issue that we're just, that our people are being killed left and right. And these things are not being reported properly because we can't fucking come to a conclusion of what we are racially. And we're not putting it out there, what we should be. And I said it years ago, and I'll say it again, that Latino/Hispanic should be labeled as a race. I said this years ago, okay? I said it years ago, and I'm saying it again, and there's proof that I said it years ago. People are finally coming up to speed, and in a way, please, people that are coming up to speed, please keep pushing it out. Please. If it'll in any way get us to be, sorry about my cat, if in any way it'll get us to be on board with something that can possibly benefit us as a group, we need to do it. And I'm going to go before my cat keeps crying because he was fed and everything. He just wants my attention. All right, I'm going to go for now. I'll see you all in my next one. Take it easy. Bye.